What if I told you the story you know about the end of the Targaryens is wrong? We love to blame the Mad King Aerys for his insanity, or his son Rhaegar for sparking a rebellion. But what if the real fault line, the crack that shattered an entire dynasty, was put there 50 years earlier by a king without whom there would be no Mad King and no Robert's Rebellion? And what if the man responsible wasn't a villain, but one of the best, most decent kings Westeros had ever seen? This is the story of Aegon V, the man they called Egg. He was a king who walked the dusty roads of Westeros as a boy and dreamed of a better world. But that noble quest, born from a childhood spent among the common people, would accidentally set in motion a chain of events leading to a mysterious fire, a broken family, and ultimately, the rise of the Mad King. This is the story of how the best Targaryen king secretly doomed his own dynasty. To get the man, you have to get the boy. Before he was King Aegon the Unlikely, he was just Egg. As the fourth son of a fourth son, he was so far down the line of succession, he was basically a non-factor. Nobody, least of all him, ever thought he'd rule. And that was the best thing that ever happened to him. While his brothers were raised in the smothering privilege of the Red Keep, Aegon got a very different education, one of dirt, sweat, and humility. His father, wanting him to be strong and grounded, sent him to squire for a hedge knight, Ser Duncan the Tall, a low-born but legendary knight who would one day become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. To keep his identity secret, Prince Aegon shaved his head, hiding his Targaryen silver hair and earning him the simple name Egg. For years, this unlikely pair, the giant, honourable knight and the secret prince, travelled all over Westeros. Unlike any Targaryen before him, Egg actually lived among the small folk. He didn't just wave at them from a carriage. He ate their meagre food, he slept in their flea-ridden inns, and he saw firsthand how vulnerable they were. He witnessed the casual cruelty of arrogant lords and the crushing poverty that was a fact of life for anyone not born with a name. These weren't political ideas to him. They were the faces of people he knew. This journey was his real education, forging an empathy in him that no lesson in the Red Keep ever could. He learned that honour wasn't about castles and sigils, but about protecting people who can't protect themselves. A lesson he learned daily from Ser Duncan. Every injustice he saw, every moment of powerlessness he felt was etched into his soul, planting the seeds of the revolutionary reforms to come. He was a prince learning to be a man, and a Targaryen learning what it meant to be one of the people. Aegon's path to the throne was as improbable as his childhood. After a string of tragedies and unexpected deaths, the lords of Westeros held a great council to pick the next king. They chose the boy they knew, Aegon the Unlikely. And just like that, the kid who grew up in the mud was now the king of the Seven Kingdoms. He came to the throne with a radical, dangerous idea that a king's first duty wasn't to the great houses, but to the small folk. Using the lessons from his youth, Aegon V launched the most ambitious social reforms in Westerosi history. We don't have every law word for word, but we know his reign was defined by giving the common people actual rights and protections. Imagine a world where a farmer could challenge his lord's cruelty in a royal court and actually find justice, or where there were limits on brutal punishments and protections from arbitrary eviction. That was completely alien to the feudal world of Westeros. The small folk, for maybe the first time ever, had a true champion on the Iron Throne, and they loved him for it. But the powerful lords who had run their lands like private kingdoms for centuries, they saw him as a traitor to his own class. To them, giving rights to a peasant meant taking power from a lord. They resisted him at every turn, forcing him to spend more time putting down rebellions than actually ruling. There was just one problem. His ancestors had dragons. They could enforce their will with fire and blood. Aegon V only had laws on paper. Without dragons, the Iron Throne was surprisingly weak, relying on the support of the very lords he was trying to control. His noble dream of justice was slowly killing his reign, and as his grip on the realm weakened, his grip on his own family began to slip too. While the lords of the realm fought his public policies, a more personal rebellion was brewing in his own house. Aegon had married for love, and he planned to use his children's marriages to build the alliances he desperately needed for his reforms, betrothing them to powerful houses like Baratheon, Tully, and Tyrell. It was a solid plan that could have given him the power he needed, but as it turns out, his kids inherited their father's stubborn heart. One by one, they defied him for the sake of love, wrecking his careful plans. His heir, Prince Duncan, set the tone. Betrothed to Lord Lionel Baratheon's daughter, Duncan fell for a mysterious woman, known only as Jenny of Oldstones. When forced to choose between love and the throne, he chose Jenny and gave up his crown. Romantic, sure, but it was a political disaster that not only insulted House Baratheon but also bent the line of succession toward his younger siblings. It showed the realm the king couldn't even command his own son. Inspired by their brother, his other children followed suit. His son Jaehaerys and daughter Shaera, promised to the Tullys and Tyrells, secretly married each other. His youngest son Doiron broke off his engagement to a Tyrell, preferring the company of a young knight, which meant another broken betrothal and another offended house. This is the tragedy of Aegon's character. The very empathy that made him fight for the small folk made him a soft father. Another king might have forced his kids into their marriages. But Aegon, who knew what it was like to follow his heart, eventually gave in, turning powerful allies into bitter enemies. Lord Baratheon, whose family line would one day produce a rebel king of their own, was so furious he briefly rebelled. Aegon was now isolated, besieged from all sides by defiant lords, by court whispers, and even by his own family's choices. His greatest strength, his good nature, was proving to be his greatest weakness. The House of the Dragon was a house divided, not by hate, but by love. Years passed, and Aegon's dream for a better Westeros was dying. The lords were defiant, his family's power was a mess, and another Blackfire rebellion was always a threat. The king grew desperate. The man who once believed in the power of law started turning to a much older, much more terrifying power. Dragons. He became obsessed with the idea that only with dragons could he force the lords to accept his reforms. He sent expeditions to the farthest corners of the world, from shadowed lands in the east to forgotten Valyrian ruins in the west, desperately searching for lost lore on how to hatch dragon eggs. This obsession was then supercharged by prophecy. A woods witch tied to Jenny of Oldstones, the woman Prince Duncan gave up the throne to marry, gave a stunning prophecy. The prince that was promised would be born from the line of Aegon's grandchildren, Aerys and Rhaegar. For a desperate king, this must have felt like a sign. He wasn't just chasing power. He was now convinced destiny was on his side. This was the final push. Summerhall was meant to be a place of warmth and peace, a sunlit retreat for the Targaryen family. But in 259 AC, Aegon summoned the clan there for a very different purpose, and he gathered 7 dragon eggs, planning a ritual likely involving wildfire to finally bring dragons back. We don't know exactly what happened next. The details are lost to smoke and tragedy. All we know is that the ritual went catastrophically wrong. The flames erupted, consuming the castle in a hellish inferno. the fire took the best of them. King Aegon V, the boy called Egg, died in the flames of his own desperate hope. His noble heir, Prince Duncan, died with him. Ser Duncan the Tall, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, died a hero trying to save everyone he could. In the chaos of that same day as the castle burned, Princess Rhaegar gave birth to a son, Rhaegar Targaryen. It was a night of fire, death and birth that would change Westeros forever. The fire at Summerhall was more than a tragedy. It was the secret moment that put the Targaryens on a one-way track to ruin. The promise of Aegon's reign burned away, and from those ashes, a dark legacy grew. First, the fire shattered the line of succession. With Aegon and his heir dead, the crown passed to his second son, Aerys II. Aerys was a decent man, but he was shattered by the trauma of watching his father and brother die, and perhaps by the horrifying, magical ritual they had attempted. His already poor health broke completely, and he ruled for only 3 short years. Second, the prophecy that fueled the fire now infected the survivors. It was no longer a side note, it became the driving force of Targaryen decisions. Convinced that the promised prince had to come from his line, Aerys II forced his own children, Aerys and Rhaegar, into an unhappy marriage they didn't want. Their son, Rhaegar, was born on the day of the disaster and grew up haunted by it, a melancholy prince obsessed with the prophecy of his birth. It was this obsession that would one day lead him to Lyanna Stark, the act that lit the fuse for Robert's rebellion. Third, the political fallout was immense. The loss of so many Targaryens, combined with the broken marriage pacts, left the dynasty weaker than ever. When Jaehaerys' son, Aerys II, the Mad King, took the throne, he lacked the strong family network that might have checked his growing paranoia. And finally, the death of Aegon V meant the death of his dream. Years later, Tywin Lannister, as Hand to the Mad King, worked to roll back many of Aegon's pro-smallfolk laws to win favour with the great lords. The commons were left right back where they started. You can draw a tragic domino effect line from one event to the next. Aegon's failed reforms led to his desperation. That desperation led to Summerhall. Summerhall led to a traumatised dynasty, the forced marriage of Aerys and Rhaegar, and the prophecy-obsessed Prince Rhaegar. And Rhaegar's obsession led straight to the war that ended it all. The story of Aegon V is the ultimate Westerosi tragedy. He was a good man who dreamed of a just world, a king who actually cared about the little guy. His story is a powerful reminder that in a broken system, good intentions aren't enough. His kindness and empathy were the very things that led him down a path of frustration and, in the end, desperation. He tried to change the world with laws and was defeated. He tried to change it with magic and was destroyed. The great irony is that in trying to save the common people, Aegon V unknowingly set up the fall of his own dynasty. When we talk about the Mad King, Rhaegar, or even Jon Snow, we're really living in the shadow of Egg's choices. The road to ruin was truly paved with his good intentions. The ghosts of Summerhall would haunt his family for generations, their whispers of grief and prophecy twisting the minds of his descendants. The secret game changer wasn't a villain. It was a hero who failed. But what do you think? Was Aegon V a hero whose ideas were just ahead of his time? Or was he a well-intentioned tyrant willing to risk everything on a mad gamble with fire and blood to get his way? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay in this era, we still haven't even scratched the surface of Rhaegar's own choices and what he thought the prophecy meant. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the secret history of Westeros, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more lore from the world of ice and fire. Thanks for watching.